This week on Arizona Illustrated, Monsoon Mushrooms on Mount Lemmon.
This is probably the densest mushroom population after the monsoons of any place in the world.
A place for poetry.
We can build centers like these throughout the nation, and we should.
And Ansel Adams at the U of A.
There is something here that you can't get anywhere else in the world.
Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Today we're here on Mount Lemmon, about 43 miles from downtown Tucson, where temperatures are a bit cooler at this altitude. Here at the end of June, we can expect that the monsoon rains are not far off, and those rains will bring new life, including here on Mount Lemmon, where a growing community of fungi fans have discovered one of the world's most dense and diverse mushroom populations.
Here we are on the top of Mount Lemmon, and any day that, even if we weren't to find one single mushroom, any time you've spent a day in the woods, you've already won. My name is Julia Bishop Beauty, and I was a reporter for 25 years down here at the border. And now my major passion is mushrooming. I've joined a group and we hold mushroom growing classes, and we have mushroom hunts. We look for mushroom treasure, right? Which is what we're doing here today. But what if I open it? It's still brown all the way through.
Exactly, it's just incredible. You're out here in the forest and you suddenly seeing bright oranges, bright reds, blues, whites, purples, any color, bright yellow. So it's something really amazing, and the fact that it only pops up at a short time of the year and disappears again. It's just a really magical thing to be the person that captured it in that small time that it was there.
My name is Niles Bauer, and I run the Mushroom Club here in Tucson. We're in Mount Lemmon in Tucson, Arizona, because this is probably the densest mushroom population after the monsoons of any place in the world, or of any known place in the world. Because we have the monsoons, and because the monsoons are finite and fairly short, the mushrooms have to emerge during the monsoon or soon afterwards.
Hey, my name's Denver, and I'm a mushroom hunter. I just really have a hobby and enjoyment to come out here into the mountains during the rainy season and find all the delicious, medicinal, edible mushrooms that I can. I would say solidly I've been doing it for about 4 to 5 years. And it started as chance as I got a book for Christmas that was a mushroom ID guide. So it kind of started there, but the passion was ignited when I came up here to Mount Lemmon and found Ganoderma conchs, big, beautiful red mushrooms growing on the trees. And that just really started a passion for me to come up here and see what else I could find year after year. Anytime you say the word mushroom, all you hear people talk, oh, trippy mushrooms, this and that, but it's really a sad state of affairs because most Americans, most Westerners don't have a relationship with mushrooms. And whereas most other countries do, any other countries, they really love mushroom hunting, they love gourmet mushrooms. And in America, unfortunately, we only know of 2 or 3 varieties really, when there's thousands and thousands of varieties that could be being enjoyed. You just gotta get out there and find them, start cultivating them. So over here you see some nice polypores. Not positive on the ID of them, probably not hard to figure out what they are. But these are very common up here on Mount Lemmon. You'll find them all over the place from probably 6,500 feet on up.
This is the shaggy mane mushroom. It's a choice edible mushroom. And one of the nice things about it is it doesn't have a lot of lookalikes. So when you're going along, you can find it, you can identify it, and you know you found mushroom treasure because it's delicious. Your day has just paid off.
One of the best known and safest of all wild mushrooms. The flavor is very delicate, but the texture is marvelous. Not slimy as an okra, but succulent as an octopus.
I actually don't like eating mushrooms, but I'm just fascinated by the legitimate science behind them. My background is in engineering, but I've never pursued that. I always went for my passion, I guess. Mushrooms are essential to a forest. They're essential to any ecosystem itself. And if you look over there, you can see mushrooms growing on the side of this dead log. What they're doing is recycling the nutrients from the tree itself back into the system so you can get uptake into living organisms. Plants, animals, fungi itself gets reused and recycled by fungi. Without that, this whole system would just break down. Everything would just fall apart.
I don't think we choose who we fall in love with, right? And I didn't really choose to fall in love with mushrooms. You know, they appeared, it happened, I fell in love, and then after that, I can identify logical reasons, such as, you know, they have incredibly huge medicinal properties, or they have chemical warfare between each other and make little chemicals, or they support all life on the planet, right? So I can use all these logical reasons, but basically I just fell in love.
It just really depends what mushrooms you're looking for. Some mushrooms you're going to be looking up in the trees, some mushrooms you're going to be looking on the ground, some you're going to be looking on stumps. So if you know what you're looking for, you know specific areas to check. I personally am looking for anything and everything, so I'm looking everywhere.
There's something about being outside and being engaged in nature, and allows you to do it without any effort. If you've got a passion for plants and you go out into nature to identify plants or to look for plants or go birding, or you're engaged in it and there's no effort. And the same goes for mushroom collecting and mushroom ID.
I could study them for the rest of my life and not learn everything there is to know about mushrooms. They continually surprise and delight me.
Some mushrooms are poisonous and should not be consumed. Experts warn that it's imperative that you become familiar with the mushrooms in your region before harvesting or consuming any of them. Turn to experienced people and reliable sources to learn more. I am looking at trees. They may be one of the things I will miss most from the earth. That's the opening line from W.S. Merwin's classic poem, Trees, a book by Charles Hobson illustrating ways to encounter Merwin's trees was obtained by the University of Arizona Poetry Center in 2017, marking the 50,000th book in the collection.
Wallace Stevens calls poems or poetry a preserve for the imagination. And sometimes I think about the Poetry Center as a sort of physical manifestation of that, a sort of a national park for the imagination.
The University of Arizona Poetry Center has been located in this building on campus in Tucson since 2007. It was built to be a permanent home for poetry in this community. Its doors and massive library are open to anyone free of charge. You don't even need an ID to go in and read.
People, I think, do see the facility and think, oh, that's, it's new. This is a new place. It's a longer and prouder history than just the facility.
Richard Shelton was at the U of A in 1960 when the center was just an idea. He and his late wife, Lois, played a critical role in its formation.
President Harville called me into his office one day, and he said, the Walgreen heiress, Ruth Stefan, is giving the university a lot with a small house on it, and she wants to establish a poetry center. She's going to supply books to duplicate her poetry library in Greenwich, Connecticut.
One of the most influential poets in American history, Robert Frost, traveled to Tucson to dedicate the center in 1962.
From the very beginning, the thrust of the Poetry Center was about the collection and about poets and making a space for them here in Tucson in the desert.
The collection started in this cottage, and with the help of an endowment acquired new books at a pace that at times was difficult to contain.
There was a while when we really didn't have enough staff to receive the books and catalog them in and all that. It's a lot of work. One time I took over as director, and the previous director had boxes of books stacked in the hall.
We're buying about 1,200 books a year. We subscribe to about 250 literary journals. I think it's remarkable that that sort of visionary gift with sort of creative librarianship, consistency, routine effort done over time has grown into one of the largest poetry collections in the country.
The collection focuses on poetry from 1960 to the present day, and is indeed one of the largest collections of poetry in the country. This rare book is a special acquisition for the center.
It's called Trees, and it's built on a poem by W.S. Merwin, former U.S. Poet Laureate. He's visited the Poetry Center many times over the decades. This is a special book to us because it's very beautiful. It's a milestone for us to have reached 50,000 books. The book is designed to fold out so that it can be experienced in a multitude of ways. The lines of the short poem are woven into the pages, and that's really appropriate because the poem itself is about relationships. When I think about the significance of the 50,000th book to the Poetry Center, I also think in terms of relationships. Merwin is very well beloved, and his longtime affection for Tucson has meant that there are a lot of ties between the Poetry Center and Merwin's work.
W.S. Merwin is one of many influential poets to visit the Poetry Center as part of the reading and lecture series that started in 1962 and continues to this day.
We had readings, basically. That was what we did. And we brought in poets from far away and from all over the world, actually.
The center has hosted over 1,000 poets, including 27 U.S. Poet Laureates, 40 Pulitzer Prize winners, 35 National Book Award winners, and 4 Nobel laureates.
So it's not facetious to say that there's a way in which the 20th century of American poetry tracks through Tucson. It's almost easier to say who hasn't been here to get a sense of who has been here.
If you can't make it to the Poetry Center in person, you can still explore its rich history online.
This is Mocha. Mocha is our online audio-video database of recordings that we have been making of our reading series. And the reading series goes back to 1962. We started making recordings in 1963. We have, at this point, over 800 recordings on it. In most cases on Voca, we have broken down each track by poem title. If the poem has been published, we try to note where it was published and which book it's in. So that ties the Voca archive very firmly to the collection. In most cases, you can hear a poem and then go read it right here in the library.
On this night, the center is hosting a reading by Layli Long Soldier and Timothy Yu. They're both internationally recognized emerging poets who address social issues in their own way. They draw a large crowd.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to everybody at the Poetry Center. You know, I imagine perhaps you all are accustomed to this space existing, but you know, coming here and seeing this space and seeing all the folks here is just astonishing for a poet.
Yu's book, 100 Chinese Silences, rewrites work from influential poets who have unfairly thematized China. His humor can be disarming, but his work has a serious edge.
I am a cicada, floating in a coffee cup on the desk of the Poet Laureate. Grant proposals are being written. Many bottles of Napa wine are emptied. But even when his nodding head strikes the desk like a bobbing Buddha's, I lurk silently inside my mug, chipped by the teeth of Ezra Pound.
I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Long Soldier is reading from her 2017 book, Whereas, which was a finalist for the National Book Award.
I am a citizen of the United States and an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe.
Her poetry directly addresses the U.S. government's official apology to Native Americans.
I did not desire in childhood to be a part of this, but desired most of all to be a part, a piece, combined with others to make up a whole. Some, but not all, of something. In Lakota, it's hanke, a piece or part of anything.
Poetry will always, I think, stay slightly ahead of the masses. So it's evolving, it's constantly evolving.
It's a difficult world, and I am righted by poetry often. And I think having spaces where words are valued and language is held up as an especially important thing gives me some sense that there's a way forward.
That belief Tyler Meyer has in poetry and the Poetry Center was recently rewarded. The Art for Justice Fund gave the center a $500,000 grant to explore mass incarceration, the largest grant in the center's history. Richard Shelton is no stranger to this subject. He's been teaching poetry in prisons for years.
I find it hard to believe, actually, that anybody would give that money, and I'm delighted. And I hope that, the emphasis can be on working with incarcerated people.
With a rich history and recent success, people across the country see the Poetry Center as a model for how poetry can stay a part of our lives and collective consciousness.
It's hard to get great big support for poetry. And just one look at the center, just the opportunity to walk around the center and to see how it promotes the art is enough to give people like me faith that we can build centers like these throughout the nation, and we should.
The Poetry Center is part of a larger poetry coalition, and it's nice to see poetry organizations like the Poetry Center here taking a leadership role and working together around the country to foster poetry and encourage and build audiences for poetry. So I can only see it growing.
Ultimately, we're beings based in language, and I think how we talk about the things that matter greatly to us largely defines our relationship to them. Poetry has a lot to offer in how we might imagine new language for how we think about these things. And if we can imagine new language, I think then we can imagine new kinds of relationships with these challenges. And that's part of the future that we're excited to be a part of. And we're excited for the role that poetry might play in helping shape that.
And now from our Far Afield series, we bring you local artist Golden Boots from Golden Pins Lanes. Ansel Adams is best known for his striking black and white images of expansive landscapes in the American West. The Center for Creative Photography, where his life's work is housed, was founded by Adams and then U of A President John Schaefer in 1975. In 2017, the CCP celebrated the legendary photographer's birthday, and now it's an annual event.
I was a photography major at NYU. I heard that there's this place where photography is studied. It's kind of hallowed ground. I've worked in museums around the country. I wanted to come here because I was fascinated by the fact that there is something here that you can't get anywhere else in the world, to be truly honest.
The center purchased a small portion of Adams' work. Much of it was donated in hopes that other artists would follow his lead. They did. Adams kept with him many of his negatives and much of his correspondence, memorabilia, and work prints in order to complete his work. Now all of that material will be gradually transferred to the center, and in his will he left even more to the University of Arizona.
This exhibition is one that we can offer that other institutions can't because of our holdings. And I think that's, A, that's what's exciting. B, this helps tell our story. You know, our founder was Ansel Adams. Dr. Schaefer and Ansel Adams had a vision for what this institution would be. Ansel wanted it not just to be about him. He wanted this place to be a place where the study of photography is enduring and inquiry into its cultural influence and impact is ongoing.
As a photographer, I believe that creative photography, when practiced in terms of its inherent qualities, may also reveal endless horizons of meaning.
Here you've got the lenses that he used to shoot him climbing Half Dome, and then the result, it's pretty extraordinary. This is photographs of the loyal Japanese Americans at Manzanar Relocation Center by Ansel Adams. I mean, he was deeply invested in telling those stories. You dive deep into our archive and his history, and you know, he was an environmentalist. He was very attuned to social justice and using the camera to not only take beautiful pictures, but to bear witness. And I think that's an incredible part of his story. And we're able to show that.
I was born in San Francisco, February the 20th, 1902.
How's it going?
The whole weekend was a celebration of him, his legacy, his influence. And we were packed. We had 700 people roaming around in these exhibition spaces in our auditorium and upstairs. I think he's relevant because all through the canon of art history, you've got folks that change the narrative. And he was part of that movement, you know. He was someone who was dedicated to the medium, but he wasn't against it morphing and growing. Ansel Adams, 20 years before digital was even on the radar, anticipated it. He knew the medium was going to change.
Probably we'll see in a relatively short time the emergence of electronic image. And when I say that, a lot of people say, God forbid, that's the end of creative photography. It's all going to be mechanized. And of course, that's absolutely, I think, untrue. I think it'll give a vastly greater control than we have now.
We have this dialogue today. If he was around, would he use his cell phone? Of course he would. That's what I think. You embrace the digital world. You have to participate in it. Cultural institutions have to participate in it and be active players in order to encourage the narrative. The Center for Creative Photography can be that place to posit the questions, to have the provocative conversations about our past and where we're going, visual literacy, saturation of imagery.
Oh, wow, now this is what I want to make.
Ansel was prolific on all of those subjects. When I look at these and I think about what he was doing in the darkroom and the burning and the dodging and his choices, I mean, it's just, and he's just such a master that you see the gradations, you see the texture, you move here, you have more subtlety, you keep going, the blacks are rich, and you start asking yourself, well, which one do you prefer? Which one did he prefer and why? Each one of these on their own is stunning, but together they tell the story of how his technique was so important and is a teaching tool going forward. That's the best part of my job, because I get to do this and walk around and just to be excited by the content and be impressed on a daily basis that it's here. As a region, we have a jewel here.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Here's a sneak peek at next week when we bring you our space special leading up to the 3-part PBS series Chasing the Moon, airing on PBS 6 in July.
Bennu almost looks exactly like we thought it would. Bennu has the shape that we predicted, and it's rotating in the way that we expected from the ground-based observation, but the surface is definitely much more rugged than we predicted from the ground-based astronomical observations.
So yesterday morning, I was looking through the NavCam images that were taken over the last couple of days.
On January 6th, our lead astronomer, Carl Hergenrother, called me over and showed me an image of what looked like the asteroid surface exploding. And at first we didn't really believe it. It was just such an amazing phenomena that we thought there was something wrong with the camera.
This is the beginning of the most audacious undertaking that man has ever attempted.
It was a hard march.
There's always a possibility that catastrophic failure, of course.
The computer was overloading. It was touch and go.
This will be the greatest and most complex exploration in man's history.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Everybody felt they had a piece of it, and they did.
I'm Tom McNamara. See you then.